when Openly came to Alabama, they were in business like 2 weeks, and one of their people called me like, "Hey, your agency is responsible for 85% of the quotes in the entire state of Alabama. Can you slow down a little bit? We need some different data." It's like, sure, we'll slow down a little bit.
On today's episode, Courtney and I sit down with Bradley Flowers and CJ Hudson-Pillar, and we're going to be talking about how to attract top talent, what they're doing, what they're seeing, and also then how to drive leads into their business, and just not any leads, but quality homeowner leads that are going to be on the books for a long time. With that being said, let's start the show. Hey, welcome to the Insurance Buzz. We are your hosts, Michael and Courtney Weaver. And today we are super excited. We've got two guests with us today, Bradley Flowers with Portal Insurance and CJ Hudson-Pillar, right? Hudson-Pillar with Hudson-Pillar Insurance, baby. And they've also opened a new company called Referral Radar, which we will get into in just a little bit. But Bradley and CJ, what's going on?
What's up?
What's up? Happy to be here.
Hey, man, there is no better way to start off a Monday morning than with you two. So I want to start the conversation before we get into Referral Radar. I want to get into, you guys are both independent agents, so you have a little bit different of a perspective. A lot of our audience is captive, but I'd love to just hear maybe what's some current struggles you all are working through in the space right now with the insurance industry and the changes that we're currently seeing. Bradley, let's start with you, brother.
1,000% of my struggles right now are centered around personnel, but we won't go there. I'll go more industry. You know, the thing that we're dealing with right now, you know, the market has been very hard the last few years. Carriers inspecting on every single risk and being extremely strict. And now what's happening, at least where I'm located, is you have a shift where you have more companies that are starting to loosen up a little bit and starting to write a little more business. There's still some of the tough front end underwriting and that sort of thing. But what happens, you know, when we started Portal in 2019, you know, we would compete on an account and there'd be 20 other agencies competing on that account. And then as things harden, that got less and less and less. And then it became, we might be competing against 2 or 3 because so many agencies are understaffed and had to redeploy resources from new business to trying to just keep what they have, not to mention carriers not writing business. So it became a little easier from a competitive standpoint for us during the hard market. Now things are starting to soften up and you're starting to see more competition enter the space, more new agencies being started and that sort of thing. So where we are from a carrier standpoint is, you know, managing those carriers' expectations still for the ones that are doing a lot of front end underwriting, but then also trying to be on our toes from a competition standpoint.
Okay.
Yeah, I think I'd echo a lot of that. I think Bradley was. I think when you said personnel and kind of skipping past that, I think that's a universal problem. I think there's a lot of agencies that are dealing with that. You know, on our side, I'm similar to Bradley in that, you know, there's a lot of shifting in the market, right, of appetites and things like that. And I think one of the hardest things that one of the things my team is struggling with is like understanding what they have available. Because like if you have one carrier, right, and you're getting, you know, updates from that one carrier, it's kind of easy to stay on track. But when you go, hey, we've got 20 carriers and all of them are changing their marketing and appetites like weekly, that's like a massive problem. So keeping up with like what's available, what's not available, what carrier is writing or isn't, and I think there's a lot of struggle in our agency around that currently.
Well, and carriers are like buying stocks. The earlier you get a contract with them, the better it's going to be for you. Like I'm surrounded by a lot of like old school agencies here, and a new carrier will come to the market and they'll be like, "Oh, we're going to wait 18 months and see what happens." Like, no, you're going to miss the gold rush if you do that. So like the earlier you can get in with a carrier, it's better for you for relationship purposes with that carrier. I have several carriers that love that we were their first agency appointed in this state. It's better because they're always going to be more competitive, usually right when they come to the market, and you can build up a book faster. But it's the same thing too with underwriting changes and appetite changes and all that sort of stuff. Like the quicker you can be on the ball learning that stuff, the better it is for you. So I look at it like investing and buying stocks. You buy low, sell high. If you wait, you've missed the boat. Like I bought some Apple stock 2 weeks ago just because I had a little bit of money in my brokerage account. Not realizing that I literally bought it at like the 52-week high because I was like, oh, Apple will be good. It was the 52-week high, and we all know what happened 2 weeks later.
Yeah,
I was feeling pretty good about my portfolio 2 weeks ago, and then I lost like $1,500 in like 8 hours.
Seconds.
Anyway, yeah.
Okay, so I'm curious because you said stay ahead of the curve. Where are you getting your information from when you're hearing all of this, like appetite shifting, carrier shifting? Where's that information coming from? Directly from the carriers?
A lot of it's directly from the carrier. A lot of it is paying attention. I mean, really, the overarching answer would be paying attention. But getting information from the carriers, having relationships with the reps, because a lot of times the reps will say, hey, we're not that competitive in this area, but we have this one little pocket right here that we're competitive in. Or I had a rep last week that came by the office. He was like, hey, do you know that we have an adjust premium button in our rater that if you don't like the premium, you can hit adjust premium and they'll adjust it 20% either way every single time? Wow. And I'm like, no, I didn't know that. He's like, nobody else does either. And I was like, can I give you $100 not to tell anybody else that?
You just said it on a podcast. It's out now.
It's just, well, I'm not going to say who the carrier is, but it's just like paying attention. I think CJ would answer that the same. It's just paying attention to what's going on. One advantage I have that you guys may have as well, and I know CJ does, is like because I'm involved in the industry at a national level, you hear things before it really makes its way to the local people who aren't paying attention, And like, for example, we were the first agency appointed with Geico in the state of Alabama because we were on the ball. As soon as that rumor started circulating, I started having conversations with people high up at Geico, like, hey, I want to be your first, et cetera, et cetera. Same with like Openly and stuff like that. And one thing that I will do, I did this with Openly. So I knew Openly was going to be competitive when they first came to the state. They were not writing in Alabama, but they were writing in Tennessee. So what I did is I went and got my Tennessee license, got an appointment in Tennessee. That way, when it came to Alabama, I got it first. Mm-hmm. And there wasn't like a 2-week lag of like, hey, And in fact,
I
it's kind of funny
with Texas.
Yeah, when Openly came to Alabama, they were in business like 2 weeks, and one of their people called me like, hey, your agency is responsible for 85% of the quotes in the entire state of Alabama. Can you slow down a little bit? We need some different data. It's like, sure, we'll slow down a little bit.
Okay, I want to get into personnel.
Boom. That's where I was going too, baby. Let's go.
I'm going to start a different way because when you're talking about all of the different underwriting and appetites that carriers have, what is the message that you're delivering to your personnel? Are you shifting your product focus? What does that look like from a leadership top-down perspective? What are you communicating to your teams?
Go ahead,
CJ.
Now you
okay.
Because I'm going to a little bit.
So there's really two ways. I think one mistake a lot of agencies make as they grow. It's easy to do it when you've got 5 employees, but when you start getting more than that, I think one mistake a lot of agency owners make. A lot of agency owners are former producers. Former producer personality is very like control freak. I want my hands on everything. I want to be everybody's boss, etc. And I remember the first time I heard this, a friend of mine was talking about it. He said, you need to, as you grow, avoid a flat culture. And he defined a flat culture as you have one boss and all of these people report to this one boss. And that's not really good for anyone because all of these people feel like they don't get enough face time with you and you're so stressed out because you're having to do one-on-ones and talk to all these direct reports. And one thing that we did pretty early when we got around the 8 to 10 employee mark is we put managers in place. So I've got a sales manager, I've got a service manager, I've got an operations manager. And so that's sort of how information is disseminated up and down. So if we have a carrier change, like my sales manager, the main parts of her job is either hearing from me or learning herself all of the different changes that the carriers are making, and then relaying that to the sales team, and then constantly reminding them of, hey, don't forget this carrier. And then it also gives the producers an outlet, or our salespeople an outlet, that if they're struggling with a risk, they can go to that person and say, hey, I'm struggling with this, and they can be like, well, did you try this one, right? Whereas if I was having to do that, the information is not going to be as great because I'm having to do that for 17 different people. You know what I mean? So that's like number one. And number two is what we did, and a lot of independent agencies don't have this, is we have a custom intranet that is, if you're with a captive carrier, you have an intranet whether you realize it or not. I remember the first captive carrier I went to work for, I saw the word intranet, and I was so dumb. I was like, oh, they misspelled internet. I didn't realize that it was a different thing. And for those of you listening that aren't sure what I'm talking about, it's essentially a website that's only internal facing, and we put everything on that intranet, and we can run like pop-ups and advertisements and say, hey, don't forget about this carrier made this. Like, that's where all of like the underwriting changes go and that sort of thing. So it's sort of like one of two ways for them to access it. And we're not perfect at it, but it works pretty well for us.
Yeah, Bradley and I are structured very similarly in as far as how we're structured. I don't know how many employees are you at, Bradley?
17 or 18. So 18 as of tomorrow. I have somebody new starting tomorrow.
Gotcha. All right, and I've got 15 as of today, and by the time this podcast comes out, it could be 10. I don't know. But no, that's a joke. But the top down, having managers in place, smaller groups essentially is kind of the way that we've always looked at it of people. As far as how we manage it, Bradley kind of touched on their intranet. We do something similar, except we use Chat GPT for it. We have a custom GPT that has anytime there's an update, we update our GPT's memory, if you will. So when my team have questions, they can pop in there and ask it, and it'll spit out, hey, this carrier for this or this, whatever the thing is. And then it'll also show them like where in the documentation from those carriers you can get that information. So that's the way that we do it.
Very cool. So when it comes to personnel, a lot of insurance agents, I don't care if it's on the captive or independent side, are really struggling with recruiting talent right now. I'd be very interested in this. This is from a carrier. This is from a top down. I mean, carriers are having a really hard time. I mean, I saw a recent survey that 60-something% of millennials and Gen Z said that they had zero interest in working in the insurance industry because it was boring, right? So I'd be very interested, not in necessarily your recruiting tactics, but what are you finding within your organization that's working to find the talent that they're interested in, and then not just leaving you after 3-6 months as long as they're working out, producing the way they are? Like, I'd be very interested in what you're doing from a culture standpoint, or what you're finding that the talent is looking for that's intriguing to them within the workspace.
I have the most amazing story on this that I think you guys will love. One of the things that we do is, one, culture is going to be the biggest thing. Like, you have to instill a really strong culture within your agency. Everybody has to feel like they're part of something and that they're building something together, and they're not just on like this iceberg out here. But it's funny to me, the amount of agencies, especially a lot of like legacy agencies, that are losing the talent that they do get over the simplest, silliest little things. I'll give you an example. I had a employee that went to their previous employer and asked for a raise, and they said, hey, the market's been tough. We can't give you a raise. That's not something that we can do right now. And they said, you know what, I understand that. Is it possible for me to get 2 more PTO days instead of getting a raise? And the employer said no. And so now they work for me. So it's like these little things that like we get like, what is 2 PTO days to that employer? like at the end of the day, like, that is nothing. And they lost somebody over that. And in my opinion, like, losing staff is like one of the most expensive things that can happen, because there's like, you lost the staff member, but B, now their workload is now on somebody else. Now they're less effective because they're having to handle 2 loads there, and then you also run into, now I have to hire and train, and it's just this big problem. And to me, like, I just look at silly things like that, and I'm like, guys, this is why you're struggling, because you're stuck in the mud of this is the way we've always done it, and I'm not veering out for anyone. And the reality is that I'll make an exception if I can make the math work. That's always the way that I look at it. In this instance, that's how we approached it.
I love this so much because we have a tendency to just throw money at a problem. So we always just want to incentivize or try to compensate, and not everyone is motivated like that. We had to switch this in the very beginning because we didn't have the money to continue to, bonus out and up the pay and continue to do that. We just didn't, the margins were too small. And so we actually sat down every single person and we're like, what do you actually want here? And most of them didn't want to come into work and they wanted to go on vacation. And so it was like, okay, well, we can make this work. We can get really creative. So CJ, I love that you're bringing that up because it gives us an opportunity to really think, okay, if we don't have the money or we don't have the resources for this one thing, how do we create an opportunity for somebody to stay?
Yeah.
Well, the thing is, it's 1,000 silver BBs, not one silver bullet. Not to rip off Alex Ramosi, but that with most success, that's the case. And I'm not perfect. I say often that when I had 5 employees, like I thought I was a great leader. There's a huge difference between 17 employees and 5. And there's probably somebody listening to this that has 50 that's like, this guy has no idea what's coming, One of the hardest adjustments, I think, going from 5 to 17 is getting adjusted to the fact that maybe not everybody in the company likes you. You know what I mean? Like, I remember when I worked at a big corporation, there would be people that didn't like the CEO, and that sort of thing. But one like overarching thing that I tell people with recruiting, recruiting is one of the only things that I feel like I'm pretty good at. I'm dangerous in a lot, but I feel like our agency is really good at recruiting. And I tell a lot of people this: go look at your website. All right, when you get a resume, all right, let's pretend you got a resume. What's the first thing you're going to do? You're going to ball the resume up and go to their social media.
Ooh, okay.
Yeah.
That's exactly what candidates are doing. They're going to go to your social media. They're going to go to your website. And there's a lot of, especially old timer agency owners that like to poo poo on social media and, oh, it's corny, it's cheesy, whatever. But that's where the people are going. And they're going to go to your social media. They're going to go to your website. A lot of times people have a problem analyzing themselves. Like I remember back when I was playing a lot of golf, like I could fix anyone's swing. I could never fix my own because you have this bias. So I get friends to look at it. Like if you're like that with your website and your social media, find a friend that fits the exact demographic experience level of someone you want to hire and be like, I need you to analyze my social media, analyze my website, look at my office and ask and tell me, what about this turns you off? I was looking at an agency last night that was for sale in another state. And I was like, oh, this might be a nice buy because if they have a solid brand in that area. And I looked at the website and I was like, I don't want anything to do with this. And it was like one HTML site. The entire site was just like one run-on sentence. You know what I mean? Like look at those little things like that matter. I think there's a reason, trying to make insurance sexy is something that's been my goal from the get-go. There's a reason that my office looks like a co-working space and not a, mahogany wood chair rail with the green upholstered chairs with the little buttons around them, kind of like the buttons that are on your jacket, but in a much less cool way. There's a reason that we wear jeans and sneakers. Yeah, we had an employee recently that left the agency, and I made the suggestion that I thought this person should go to work for a large agency because it would have been a better fit. And the person told me, I really don't feel like having to dress up every day and wear leather sole dress shoes and pleated khakis and, all that. And it's all those little things like that matter. But really the main thing I think as far as keeping people is, the average employee stays at a job less than 5 years now.
Yep.
If they are under 30 years old, it goes down to 2.5. Way too many organizations manage from the angle of either A, I'm going to try to keep this person here forever, or B, this person's going to be here forever and their head's in the clouds. If you manage from the angle of, hey, this person's only going to be here 2.5 years, this person's only going to be here 5 years, let me try to build them up so that when they do leave, it's a great exit. And oh, by the way, if things go great, they might stay. It's a subtle little mental shift, but I think it makes a huge difference, and it kind of cascades through the organization. But the big thing is, you just have to make your place attractive to candidate. There's a bunch of, I'm sure there's a bunch of captive agents on listening to this podcast. There's a reason so many people go to State Farm. It's because of the brand. They know the brand. You need to do the same thing with your agency in your little local community.
Absolutely. It's one thing I tell my management and stuff is I want to train our team to where any member of our team could leave and be the number one insurance person in any agency they want to go to, but it's our job as leadership to make sure they don't want to. And that's kind of the way that we attack it. Is hey, I want to build them up. I want to make them the best that they can be. Let them know that they could go anywhere, but operate in the way that they don't want to.
Well, and what happens too, brand is just another word for reputation. So let's use reputation. I bet when you guys first started this podcast, when you reached out to people for guests, you had to explain to them who you were and what the podcast. And now I bet you just reach out and say you want to come on the podcast, and they know exactly what you're talking about. It works the same way with recruiting. When we first started, and I only hire people who are currently in the industry. Every now and then we'll hire somebody brand new, but typically we only hire people that are already in the industry. In the beginning, I had to spend the first 2 paragraphs of the message I sent them or the phone call explaining who Portal was and what our vision is. And now that we've built up our reputation, it's, hey, we'd be interested in talking to you about a job. And they're like, oh my gosh, I'm so honored that you would be interested in me, that I'm worthy. That's a great angle to come to be at, a great position to be at when you're recruiting it. And a lot of it gets easier the more you build up the brand. If they've never heard of the agency, it doesn't matter how great you are, how much you pay, what your people are like. They're going to come into that with a little bit of hesitation.
Yep.
Yeah.
Well, I think the other thing too, I think Courtney was leaning toward. I think a lot of people put too much emphasis on pay. Throwing money at a problem makes it go away, and I don't think, especially the younger people say they want to hire young talent. The younger they go, the less how much my payroll is matters. Let's not be naive. It does matter to a point, right? But there's additional things in there that the younger Gen Zers care about that. Somebody that's even an older millennial, because we call millennials millennials are young, but the reality is us millennials are getting up there.
Elder millennials are almost 40, baby. Let's go.
So, we have to think about that too.
The elder millennials.
The elder
millennial, yeah, different. Every generation has a different value system. They have a different set of buying behaviors, and they have a different value system. And so, depending on what generation, again, we're now in millennials and Gen Z. Their value system is different than a baby boomer. How they spend money is different than a baby boomer. So we have to make sure that when we are talking to these people, we're making sure that we are emphasizing what's important to them versus what we are just trying to accomplish.
Bradley, you said something really important that I don't want to go overlook. So you said, when you get a resume, go to social media, and hey, you're going to be biased. So have a friend with. Here's the thing I want to point out right now. Who is your ideal candidate that you want to hire? You said, hey, you need to know the age, the demographic. Hey, now look at my site and what turns you on or what turns you off. Well, I think the very first step to that is defining who you even want to hire within your organization to be able to attract that person. So many times it's we're just going to throw a bunch of shit on the wall and hope it sticks. we're going to recruit a bunch of
Can you fog a mirror?
That's right. So that stood out, and I didn't want to just overstep that because I think that is the most important piece. For you to attract the type of person you want in your organization, first you need to define who that ideal person is that's going to fit within your culture.
And by the way, that is actually a hack for those of you trying to do social media. That's a hack for social media as well. So when I'm not doing a ton of social right now, but back when I was at my zenith of really pushing content on social, I had a guy that was a friend that fit my target audience that I wanted my content to relate to. And I created every single piece of content around would this guy like it?
Yep.
Speaking to the one person, right?
I do the exact same thing. I want to crawl into their brain and go, what keeps them up at night? What are they interested in? What would make them click? Like, what words would they use? What tone would they use?
And he never knew that he was the guy. But when I posted a piece of content, let's say I posted 10 pieces of content and he liked 3 of them. Okay, we're going to do other versions of these 3. We're going to scrap these 7. And big social media accounts will do this. Like Gary Vee has a burner social media account that they post all their content to first, that it's like the followers of the followers, like the real hardcore people. And then they take those things and then post them to the main account. It's a hack you can use for a lot of things, but defining that candidate is crucial. And personally for us, like I put candidates in 3 buckets. Okay. There's the people that are maybe not going to be the best compensated and they're willing to work for less compensation, but they're super motivated. These are usually people that are early in their career, right? The enterprise rent-a-car manager that, his enterprise hires everybody under the sun, that person that's really motivated, wants to move on, or a Chick-fil-A employee, right? That sort of thing. And then you have people who are super well-versed in their craft. They've been doing it forever. They're still motivated. They want to make a bunch of money. And then you have all the people in the middle that just want a job. I don't hire those people. I only hire these 2 people. And so that, for us, it's people that fit in one of those 2 buckets, but defining who you want to hire. And by the way, there's like people listening to this that are probably early in their agency career. They're like, look, I just need somebody that's willing to sit at a desk. That's cool too. That's just your target audience. It's the person that's willing to work here,
Man, there's so many. You're going to spend so much money on that approach, though. Like, and I get it.
Sure
like, we all go through it. Like, I just need somebody in the seat making the calls. Like, I just need a warm body that can hopefully say something close to what I'm teaching them.
My first employee was an old lady, and she smoked like 2 packs of cigarettes a day. And I remember telling her, I don't care how many cigarettes you smoke a day, as long as you sell insurance and you don't smoke on the front porch, only smoke on the back. And I caught her.
We have a brand to keep up here.
I caught her. By the way, my office shared a wall with the Little Caesars. We weren't like, the creme de la creme. And I caught her 3 times smoking out front whenever it was raining because we didn't have an awning out back. And the 3rd time I was like, you cannot smoke in here anymore. Like, if you do this again, whatever. And 10 minutes, my office was in the front and there was a window. 10 minutes later, she walks outside, making eye contact with me, lights up a cigarette, takes a long drag, and very symbolically blows it into my face. And I called her inside. I was like, hey, today's your last day. Here's your check. And she was flabbergasted. And she would get fired for that. And I'm like, I told you 3 times. Anyway, so yeah, you don't make the mistake of hiring anybody. But I also understand. I understand where people are coming from.
For sure.
She sells mobile homes now for a living, by the way.
That's perfect. That's perfect.
Perfect industry.
That's actually,
the mobile homes, they want them to smell like smoke, and it adds to the,
I'm telling you, that could work, especially for calling people, hey, how's it going?
Oh,
yeah, exactly.
You can really get into that. Okay, so we've talked a little bit about recruiting. I want to talk about leads. That is the thing that we get asked probably most of the time. Where are you getting business from? Where are you getting people, and where are you getting business? So I'd love to hear your guys' take on what that looks like for you.
So my philosophy has always been I don't buy leads. I bought leads when I was captive, but since we started Portal, I have not bought one single lead. I am and have always been very pro buying lists. I'll buy a list of people and maybe a list of X dates or a list of realtors or a list. I bought one time a list of every property manager in the United States. I bought a list of every liquor license holder in the state of Alabama, and we will market to that list to generate our own leads. And so that's what sort of led CJ and I to Referral Radar, because Portal's big thing we first started, the only vertical we were really in, and we do a lot of different things now, is we work the mortgage lender, realtor referral route. And that was that, and I think it's important. Back to your ideal person, like, you need to have an ideal customer as well. Yep. And when we first started, our ideal customer were people who were closing on a home or a property. And the thing that makes that really easy is, like, generally every single transaction goes exactly the same. So we could really systematize it. And when we first started, we would buy lists of every mortgage lender in the 2 counties that we're located in and market to the, reach out to them to try and build a referral relationship. We had a very systematic process of how we reached out to them, how we converted them into referral partners, and eventually convinced them to send us every deal that they got. It's the exact same process we still use to this day. But we had to find them, right? The realtors are easy to find. The realtors are on social media. They're loud. They're boisterous. By the way, the ones that brag the most usually don't sell the most homes, but that's, you can find that out through Referral Radar if you want to. But we wanted to target mortgage lenders, and the mortgage lenders typically aren't on social media because they're busy, right? The average mortgage lender does way more deals a month than the average realtor does. Average realtor sold 1 home last year, and I think 76% of them sold no homes. The average mortgage lender is doing multiple deals in a month. And so we had to find a way to get to the lenders, and short of doing hours and hours and hours of research, we discovered some data aggregation companies that we could buy lists from, and we would buy these lists. It wasn't like an ongoing thing. It was a snapshot in time, so you could kind of get an idea of who's doing production, but it's really expensive. It cost me like $3,000 a year for just 2 counties. And so we could, I could only afford to do it once a year, but that was essentially what we worked off of. And I think CJ has a very similar philosophy.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm almost a little negative about people at heart. Like I have this like skepticism of a lot of people. One of the things that always frustrate me the most is we used to attack the realtor. We'd go the realtor angle and use the leverage of knowing the realtor into what mortgage lenders are you guys using and go that direction. But the problem is exactly what Bradley was saying, is there's so many of them that you spend all this time marketing to them, right? And a real estate agent, as an example, if a realtor is only doing 1 deal a year, even if they refer you everything they do, we're all going to starve to death on 1 deal a year, right? That's not something that's sustainable. So for me, Referral Radar was about, how do I find the people that are actually doing volume, right? Like how do I know the difference between somebody that's doing volume and somebody that's not, and keeping myself, and then more importantly, even more than me, my team, from wasting their time on people that, because let me tell you something, there's no group of people in the world that love a free lunch more than a real estate agent, right? Like they love a free lunch, whatever, and that's great. I'm happy to pay for it if there's the potential that we can get referrals coming back the other way. And then some of them, it's not necessarily that they're being nefarious. They say, hey, I'm going to send you everything. Cool, everything is 1 deal. Like, so, we're not super excited about that. And for what we do and what Bradley does, we needed volume. Like, not just one lender. We needed, all right, who are the lenders that are doing, crazy, I don't want them to do 5 deals a month. Who's doing 25 deals a month? Mm-hmm. Because if they're doing 25 deals a month, they can send me 17 of those. I'm gonna take that times 5. I'm good, right? Like we can operate there, and by attacking it this way rather than like the buying leads thing, is a referral from the mortgage lender. Those close at a pretty high clip. Like you're gonna get a lot of those without a ton of extra effort in having to build the relationship with the customer. They're assigning their reputation to you, the lender is, and then you're handling it. And so for us, that's what Referral Radar was about, is how do we find those people, because you have no way to know in most cases.
Yeah, I mean, obviously you can look it up on Zillow and things like that, but you guys, that's why when Bradley showed me what you guys created, I was like, whoa, this is powerful for insurance agents. Doesn't matter independent or captive. If you're targeting homeowners, which I love, because homeowners typically have multiple cars, there's a life insurance need there. There's just so much opportunity there. And partly why I wanted to have you all on today, because you guys have created something that really makes it much more simple and efficient to find those individuals that are truly knocking it out of the park from a mortgage standpoint on a month-to-month basis, to where me as an insurance agent, now I don't have to go through Zillow and Google and trying to figure out who actually is a good producer, mortgage lender, and who is actually just more of the I talk about it, but I'm not really about it. All right, so that's why I loved it, and you guys have put together something that I think makes it very simple for agency owners to really. Okay, this is specifically who I want to target. I'm going to reach out. I'm going to build a relationship, see what I can do, and then I'm going to prove myself. So, Referral Radar, it's referralradar.com, right? So if somebody had questions about it, what's the easiest way for them to get a hold of you guys, go to the website? What's the easiest way to do this?
Yeah, so referralradar.com, and if they really want to go to a cool website, they go to referralradar.com/Weaver, and that's going to take them to a landing page for y'all's podcast specifically.
Who? I'm curious, do you guys have any data on like what retention looks like from these customers?
As far as people that are referred to us. So I can give you my agency statistics. Man, I don't know why I was bringing that out. So probably 90% of our marketing revolves around that real estate transaction, right? So that's where almost all of our inbound leads are coming from. Our agency has never once in the history of our agency, and we've been around since 1992, we've never fallen below 90% retention. Like that's our benchmark. So as far as do these leads retain? Yes, that's going to be a much higher retaining lead. Because for me, like the homeowner's transaction is great because people don't want to mess up their escrow account, right? Like a lot of times you get them once and they'll stay several years at least before they ever look at it. So for me, that's a huge thing for retention.
The other thing too is in a new home transaction, right? Like the seller has to get that house usually up to par in order to close. So you're not going to have inspection issues. Mm-hmm. Right. So the carrier, the rate's going to stay level for a few years. The insurance is escrowed. They're not even going to like pay attention to their insurance for 2 to 3 years after they close on that house. So a lot of people that don't do lender referrals tend to like to poo-poo on the agents that do the lender referrals when really they're just too scared to build the relationships themselves. But it's actually a great vertical that typically has a very high retention. And we tried to, with Referral Radar, get as much data as we could for people on here. That the biggest struggle I think we found is there's so many different verticals to use or ways to use it that honing in on one or two things, because it's essentially like the world is your oyster in terms of how each agent uses the data. You know what I mean? It's like me walking into a flannel shirt store. Like I'll be in there for hours trying to decide what flannel to buy, right? Or CJ walking into the Apple store.
Yes, I've already bought everything in there, so we're good.
Yeah, and one of my favorite ways to use this is each lender. Not only do you have literally every single piece of data you need, down to like the addresses on houses they've done loans on, which gives you the expiration date and all that sort of stuff, but it tells you what realtors they work with. So I can pull a lender's profile up and I can see every single transaction they've done, every single listing agent, every single selling agent. And I'm a warm intro guy. I'm never the guy that's going to cold call you. So I can go if there's a lender I want to work with, I can go to their profile and there's 30 agents listed there. There's going to be somebody on there that I know and say, hey, can you introduce me to Sally? And so it's a nice little way to sort of like triangulate through like 7 degrees of separation to get in front of somebody. But, I wanted to build this for our agency, and CJ and I were like, man, this would actually be super valuable to agents. And what we did is we accidentally created one of the only software platforms in existence that appeals to both independent and captive agents. Yep. Most tools out there only appeal to one or the other. Like we demoed a tool a couple months ago for commission tracking, and it was like, this is only going to work for State Farm farmers and Allstate agents. This isn't going to work for independent agents. There's plenty of tools that only work for independent. Yep. This works for both. It's agnostic to as far as where you are in the industry.
Yeah, that's cool. And you guys, you guys can click the link below. If you're listening right now, you're interested, just click the link below. We'll link it. And you guys have an exclusivity, right? To where if an agent clicks the link, starts with you, they have exclusivity on that region or area or whatever, correct?
Yeah, so we do. You have the ability to lock in a zip code, and we kind of laughed when we rolled this feature out. Me and Brian were like, I don't know if anybody's going to do this, and then sure enough, there were. The point of it is this: if you have a strategic, agency that you compete with on a regular basis, that like where they are, where they have locations, you can, when you sign up for Referral Radar, you can lock that zip code out. And so essentially what that means is any agency that has a physical location in the zip code that you lock out is not eligible to purchase Referral Radar. I'm just outside Nashville, right? So where I'm at, I could throw a rock out this window here and hit 3 insurance agents, right? And so I can go in and block those out using the exclusivity piece.
Very cool. All right, guys, this has been fantastic. CJ, Bradley, thank you for bringing it today. We appreciate you guys so freaking much for spending time on the Buzz and talking some shop today and how agents can target more homeowners as well. And thank you to each of you that tune in so much of the Buzz. We appreciate your support. As always, time and attention are by far our most important assets, and we appreciate you spending time with us today on the Buzz. Go out, make it great. CJ and Bradley, thanks again.